brings us to item number. Okay, item number 15, House Bill 2082 by Representative Fritz. We got a motion and a second. Representative Fritz, I show an amendment. Are you still wanting to run that amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That should be 14746.
We got a motion, and do we have a second on the amendment? We got a second. All those in favor for adding 014746 to House Bill 2082 signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes prevail. Chairman Fritz, you are recognized on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your all's time this morning. This legislation, makes a change to 3917-1307 by deleting the phrase lawfully carries a handgun pursuant to that text and replaces it with is not prohibited from possessing or carrying a firearm. The other changes made are cleanups as needed, as in a result of what you'll see some of the language in the bill. Why is this legislation needed? Currently, our law states someone who carries with the intent to go armed, a firearm or a club, commits an offense. This is in direct opposition, I think, to the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and to our Tennessee Constitution, which states, both in some words similar, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Over the years, we have added exceptions to the code in subsections E and G. However, we are infringing upon the citizen's right to bear arms because the citizen still must appear in court to prove that they meet these exceptions. Recent rulings by the Supreme Court have also affirmed this right to keep and bear arms by continuing to make carrying a firearm an offense. We are allowing the narrative of, and I quote, guns are evil, end quote, to overshadow the protected constitutional rights of Tennesseans. Although it has become trivialized, the statement that guns do not kill people, people kill people, is a true statement. It is impossible to legislate what is in the heart of a person. Someone who has hatred and violence in their heart is not going to be concerned about whether they are committing an offense by carrying a firearm. What our current statutes do, then, is to hold criminally accountable law-abiding citizens. Beginning with the Declaration of Independence, our founders enumerated what they believed to be creator-endowed rights, natural rights. In the Declaration, they described them as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This anchor to our U.S. Constitution and our Tennessee Constitution goes on to say that it's the role of government to secure these rights. Our U.S. and Tennessee Constitutions provide more detail on exactly what these rights are and what constitutes liberty. The right to keep and bear arms is closely tied to the idea of self-defense. Government does not have the authority to dictate by what means someone can protect themselves. And lastly, our current statute presumes a level of intent and therefore a level of guilt. This flies in the face of the basic tenets of our legal system. We're presumed innocent until proven guilty. By continuing to allow this statute to remain unchanged, it permits the Tennessee government to continue to violate the citizens' rights as well as the ideals of that our founders and framers envisioned. If we continue to abridge these in the name of safety, we continue to endanger the liberties that make us free Tennesseans and free Americans. Ben Franklin once said that those who sacrifice liberty in the name of safety deserve neither. We would do well to remember this. Given all this, I ask for your support on House Bill 2082. Let us make a statement today that the General Assembly recognizes the creator-endowed rights of our citizens and our core value of innocent until proven guilty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. And without objection, we've got some witnesses here that would like to speak. If the Department of Safety would come up. Elizabeth Stroecker and Colonel Matt Perry. Without objection, we'll go out of session. And just the same as before, if you just have a seat there, make sure your red light's on. You have 3 minutes, and just begin by telling us who you are and who you represent.
Elizabeth Stroecker, Legislative Director, Assistant General Counsel for the Department of Safety, and I won't take up too much of the committee's time, and I want to thank the sponsor. He's always really good to work with us, and great that we can have these conversations and disagree and still work well together, so wanted to thank the sponsor for that. The department is opposed to this bill for mostly just safety concerns. So this bill would allow anyone to be able to carry under the constitutional carry law any firearm anywhere that you could currently carry under the constitutional carry law. So currently it is handguns, and handguns, you know, can be concealed. They are smaller in nature. When you start talking about long guns in places such as outside of banks or around school buildings or around the Capitol or this building complex with long guns, it does make law enforcement very uncomfortable for the sheer fact that it's going to cause people, it is going to cause people to be concerned and have more calls reach out to law enforcement. And I'll kind of let Colonel touch on that while we've got a little bit of time, but we wanted to come and express those concerns from the law enforcement community.
Colonel Perry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Colonel Matt Perry, Tennessee Highway Patrol. As Director Stroecker said, our biggest concern is the, you know, sort of panic it would create in public. It already does when people are carrying, you know, weapons. Law enforcement gets calls. We come running. Active shooter is a word that's thrown out a lot anytime somebody has, and it's not fair. We're not talking about active shooters, but that it creates some of that kind of fear and panic. Being able to take any weapon anywhere, certainly a THP headquarters, a driver service center where, you know, sometimes people are already volatile, having extra weapons on the premises is unnecessary in our eyes.
Thank you. Members, we got any questions for the Department of Safety? Thank you all. Seeing none, we'll go back in session. All right, Representative Fritz, you're recognized. And do we have any questions for the sponsor? Representative Bozo, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Fritz, for bringing the bill. Unfortunately, I was out in Commerce just a moment ago, and I missed the first part of your introduction and presentation. But one of the things that Ms. Stroecker said was that the bill would allow anyone to carry any type of firearm anywhere. And as you're aware, when Justice Scalia wrote his opinion in D.C. versus Heller back in 2008, one of the things that he mentioned, citing Blackstone, was that historically the right to bear arms was not a right to carry any firearm anywhere for any purpose. And so my question is simply this: does this bill actually go beyond the rights that are guaranteed by the Second Amendment, or does it simply codify under Tennessee statutory law the rights that exist under the Second Amendment?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question. And Representative, it certainly does codify those rights that are guaranteed under our Second Amendment in Article 1, Section 26 of the Tennessee Constitution. I think it's important in these times to do this, to reaffirm that that we do uphold those rights as absolute in the state of Tennessee. And I appreciate your question.
Representative Bozo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One implication is that, as Ms. Stroecker stated, if this were to pass and become law in Tennessee, one could lawfully, carry a semi-automatic rifle outside of a bank. Does that trouble you, or is that something that has been misstated as to the effect of the legislation?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that question. I would echo what our public servants just offered, that we do work well together. I differ with them, obviously, on this. We have hit a point in our society where that it is often that we use hyperbole to create a sense of anxiety or fear to prevent us from doing the right thing. We've just lived through that over the last few years, and I would offer you that we're doing the same kind of thing here today. As you cited, both Supreme Court decisions, opinions on these matters, and we look to the historical context of what our framers envisioned, that firearm is nothing more than a tool. And that is a tool that I offer, as government, do not have the constitutional right to restrict its use. I would offer you this. I would offer you that our government has no more authority to regulate by which means you provide for your self-defense, that natural right, that creator-endowed right, than we do to offer what type hammer you use to drive a nail. It is easy for us to move away in the context of these discussions because of this ever-increasing violent society that we do live in, and I concede that. But all the more reason not to make our law-abiding Tennesseans criminal by actions that were simply designed and granted them by our Creator and affirmed in our Constitution to ensure that we can maintain ourselves and our posterity. I think it's a foundational thing for us to discuss. So I appreciate your question.
Representative Bozo, any follow-up?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. And Leader Lambert, you're next on my list.
Mr. Chairman, I have an oral motion at this time to add to the bill that would delete section 3917-1308. I don't think the sponsor intended this, but with that section included in here, because we're flipping this, it would allow domestic abusers, stalkers, convicted felons, and a few other folks to be able to carry. Again, I don't think that was the sponsor's intention. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we add a section of the bill deleting section 3917-1308. It should not be needed, and that way it will preserve those prohibitions against those individuals carrying.
It's a proper motion and proper second. We're voting to add oral amendment number 1 to House Bill 2082. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes prevail. The oral amendment number 1's added. And that brings us to Chairman Todd's next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've had this information before, but I don't recall the exact numbers. How many states currently allow their citizens to carry long guns in the open, in public?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative, I appreciate the question. I can't give you an absolute answer to that. I don't know. I would offer that in many cases we have extremely liberal states, like the state of New York, that often use our laws as an example to further the constitutional infringements that they enforce upon their citizens. And I think this helps to rectify that. And with that, I would thank the leader for oversight that I had. Thank you, Leader Lambert.
Chairman Todd.
Thank you for that. And apparently someone has kindly and graciously taken my question to you as kind of a phone a friend and has texted me. The number is 42 states out of 50 allow unfettered carrying of long guns in public without any restrictions. And I think there are 4 more that allow it under certain circumstances or maybe with a permit. So it's the overwhelming majority of states, and I know that makes people uncomfortable. I understand that.
All right, let's listen. Chairman Todd.
Thank you, sir. I understand it makes people uncomfortable, but in those states, they don't have a problem with this. It's not an issue because folks with common sense know that's not a practical thing to do. It's uncomfortable. It's not, I mean, it's not easy to carry a long gun, so you just don't. But it keeps people from being trapped by violating a law that they didn't intentionally intend to violate, such as a hunter going deer hunting and has a breakdown a mile from his house and has to walk back to his house. He doesn't want to leave his firearm and his ammunition in his vehicle. As soon as he gets out of that vehicle and starts back to his house with that gun over his shoulder and ammo in his pocket, he is violating Tennessee law in our state. That's ridiculous. So this would certainly help clean that up, and I appreciate you doing that.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your question and your comments. I would offer that this did not become a thing in Tennessee until 1989. Some of us with a little more gray hair remember a time when we kept our shotguns and our .22s in the racks of the back windows of our pickup trucks. And I would offer that as support. Again, it makes my heart weep to think about how violent our society has become. Our turn from all things of basic right and wrong The godlessness of our society today has resulted in a violent society. And so this is the time, if there is ever a time, to make sure that we stand fast to those rights, again, endowed by our Creator, those natural rights, and those that are covered in our Constitution. So again, I would ask for your support, and I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. And Chairman Grills, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Fritz, right over here. I hate to say to your left, to be honest with you. Why do you feel that people are so up in arms about the transition from a pistol to a long gun? Why do you feel, just personally, what do you think causes that?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that question. I think it's a long, ongoing process that has occurred in our nation. I think that we have allowed weak men to make our laws. I think that we have allowed folks who are frightened of everything to set the tempo at which our society operates. I would submit to you, colleagues, that we were not descended from timid people. Those Americans that come and settled this land and passed on to us this freedom that we enjoy today and have asked us to protect it, they did not take those positions. There's an all-out media onslaught. We use lots of catchy phrases like gun violence and things that really have no foundational meaning. Much of what the left uses today in those types of vernacular are simply intended to confuse us and create a false sense of something. I would offer you, back to your question, that we do live in a very violent society, and that is unfortunate. But disarming or restricting the arms of the law-abiding citizen has no positive effect, but will only lead us the other direction.
Chairman Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your comments there. When it comes to a long gun versus a pistol, we have the constitutional carry for short arms or for the pistols. Can you explain the difference in the functionality between an AR pistol and a SBR? Because I'm sure there's people out there that would think that a long gun is more dangerous than a pistol for whatever reason. And could you explain the difference in the functionality between an AR pistol and a SBR, short barrel rifle?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question. That's a tough question. I'll try to explain some of that. I would offer in forefront to that explanation that most of the criminals that commit murder and assault with firearms use handguns in most cases today. We have decided that we're going to draw out a shadow image of an AR platform and scare everybody to death with it. And it's working quite well in some sections of society. But the functionality of those firearms is the same. In both cases, whether it's a 9mm round or a 5.56 round, it is just the rapid expansion of gases that move a projectile down the barrel. And whether that barrel is a 6-inch barrel on a handgun or whether it's a 16-inch barrel on an AR platform, the firearm works the same. And so to hold one as more frightening than the other or more dangerous than the other is a foolish thing to do.
Chairman Grills.
So you would agree that there's nothing any more dangerous with a long gun than there is, or any safer for a pistol? Would that be fair?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your question. You said it better than I, sir.
Well,
Representative Grills.
and this be it. I know over the country, we had the Second Amendment established in the 1700s. And I've heard people say that was only for muskets. In the mid-1800s, we had the repeater come through. That revitalized the firearms. There's been technology that has constantly increased and developed. Our Constitution is is encompassed to protect all of those. Would you agree?
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question, and you bring to mind a thought. If our Constitution were not a foundationally and timeless document, then our ability to use the internet today would not be protected under the First Amendment, because that was not around in the 1700s. So that evolution of the firearms is an important point as technology advances. Firearms have become lighter, more accurate over time, and to penalize the citizen or to restrict the citizen's right to carry those firearms simply because technology is advanced is a foolhardy thing to do.
Chairman Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your commitment to preserving those rights that God has given us and that our Constitution protects. But I would offer this. We continue to talk about trying to save lives. We have devalued life to the point as society that when someone has an unfortunate weekend, they get pregnant, that baby has become something of almost a nuisance.
All right, listen, we've got to be able to hear the presenters here, so you're welcome to stay. Just let us hear what they're saying. Thank you. Chairman Grills.
That baby becomes almost a nuisance. And then we're set here lectured about trying to save lives. Every life is important. Every life has value, and that's everyone's goal up here is to protect every life. And I do believe that. And I thank you for your commitment to always standing for what's right, in my opinion.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your comments. And I would just offer this to those who think differently. And one of the things I've fought for is our right to dissent on things. One of those things I will stand for is I will absolutely not allow you to, anyone, not you all, anyone, to attack the rights of other Tennesseans without me standing against it. And I would offer that some of the moves that we have in society today where we have so frightened people of firearms and not taught firearms safety the way my generation grew up, we have created an environment that is ripe for predators. And in a time when our southern border has been overrun, and thousands of those men that are coming here, those military-age males that have come across that border, come here with ill intent. This is uncomfortable for some of those on the left to hear this, but it is a fact. You can put your head in the sand. You can try to imagine that this is not real. But to disarm the public or restrict the public's ability to protect itself in this time is absolutely one of the most foolish things I can possibly imagine, and enables not only those foreign predators, but those predators that grow up here amongst us, that have, because of their confused ideologies, want to go in and kill children in schools. They're sick people, and we must not allow our rights as law-abiding citizens to be infringed.
Any follow-up? All right, Chairman Farmer, you're next. Question's been called, and we don't have 3 hands, so we're voting to send House Bill 2082 to civil full. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes prevail. Civil full.
Thank you, Chairman, Committee.